G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody. Today I'm interviewing Steve Brossman, the sales innovator, who helps businesses sell their services for higher fees without selling their souls, which I love that term, Steve. And you're based in beautiful Sydney, Australia. And today we're specifically going to be discussing the brown box syndrome. So, thanks for your time, Steve, and appreciate taking out some time to talk to our audience. So just kick off, just tell us how our audience, how we got to know each other. In fact, I'll probably answer this one because I actually listened to a podcast where you were a guest of Jay Sher only a few weeks ago, and coincidentally that podcast was suggested by another guest of ours a few weeks ago on a podcast. So I got on there and just by chance found yours, and here we are today. So I found it a fascinating podcast. I thought it'd be great for you to share some of those insights with our listeners. So appreciate your time.
Mate, it's great to be up and to do this podcast. It's to do it at a reasonable hour because we're both in the same time zone. And for the last 18 months, most of my work has been focused in the North America area. So it's nothing for me to get up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning to do a podcast. So it's great to talk to you while the sun's up.
Yeah, sounds a lot more convenient. So just tell our audience a bit about yourself and your experience on this topic.
Yeah, well, I actually got into business by accident. I was a professional track runner, and we're just discussing that. Run across the carnivals, the sprint carnivals, the gifts across northern Tassie. But I was training for the Olympics and crushed 3 discs in my back. So you don't run real quick with a bad back that bad. But through rehab, I fell in love with the health and fitness industry. And that even back then was very, very competitive. So I decided to do things differently. And that worked. Time after time, I started inventing programs and doing different things and not doing the same as everybody else. And that helped me expand my business, franchised a kids club into 5 countries and a weight loss program into 2, and have kept the philosophy. It's better to, well, Seth Godin also said it, it's better to be different than better, cheaper, or faster. And that's one of the things that's really stood out on everything that I've done and everything that I coach people. And we're talking about the brown box syndrome. And there are so many people out there that are professionals that are a coach, a trainer, a consultant, an accountant. They're the same as everybody else. They sound the same as everybody else. They look, feel, and taste the same as everybody else. But it's not until you really unwrap the box that you see that there's gold inside. But if they're sitting on the shelf looking and sounding the same as everybody else, chances are they're just going to be chosen on price. And that's not a great place to be. So that's what we talk about, the brown box syndrome. The other little analogy with the brown boxes is, you picture Christmas Day. You run downstairs, you look under the tree, and there's all these brightly colored presents under the tree and one brown box. Which is going to be the last box opened? The brown box. Nothing ever good comes in a brown box. Everybody's seen these brightly colored things and you want to unwrap them. But the other thing that you need to pay attention to on this, and for your listeners, is the people looking at all the presents under the tree are thinking that person didn't value what's in the box enough to wrap it. And that's a good lesson in business. If you just call yourself a coach, a consultant, an accountant, a something, it's telling your prospective clients that you don't value yourself enough to work on you to be perceived as being different. And that's a big lesson to get started with.
It's certainly a common challenge for businesses I've worked with over 30 odd years. And I think it's much a mindset thing as much as anything, isn't it? And I guess having someone like yourself show them how it can be done differently and to coach them in that context is so valuable.
Yeah, look, a lot of people, they don't know. And if you go through your accountancy course or your training course or your consulting course or your coaching course, you're taught how to do what you do. And you're not taught marketing, you're not taught sales. And people don't know how to reposition themselves. And I've got a saying that when you move from an A, or A coach, A consultant, A trainer, and accountant, to a the, then your life and your bank balance changes. And people don't know how to do that. They think that they have to be the biggest and the best to turn that around. But pretty well everybody in business does something that's different, whether it's got their background, the way that they do things, the way they deliver their service, the way they communicate it. There's always something different. There's always something that people could create. And I work with people on helping them create their blueprint, the way that they work and deliver their programs and services, so people could see a visual of the outcomes that they're going to get when working with them. And if all they were was the creator of, then they could put a book out. They're the author of, an Amazon best-selling author. I know, when I put my first book out years ago, the minute I became an Amazon best-selling author, within 3 weeks, I had 3 speaking gigs because I was the author of. So it's ways to look for what is it that they do differently, but most importantly, how can that be communicated differently? Like a insurance broker that I've worked with, and the way that he wanted to work with his people, he became a lifestyle protection specialist, helping people protect their lifestyle and their assets in the time of unforeseen circumstances. So, when he was at their networking meetings, he'd get up and say, well, hi, I'm a insurance broker, blah, blah, blah. He said, Steve, nobody ever wanted to talk to me. And I said, of course not. Nobody wants to talk to an insurance broker. And he would get up and then say, well, hey, I'm a lifestyle protection specialist. I help blah, blah, blah. He said, you wouldn't believe it. Yeah. Every time I go somewhere and say that, I'll have 2 or 3 people come up and say, wow, that's fantastic. I said, how do you do that? How do you work? So by changing that around, they're really escaping sitting on the shelf the same as everybody else. And all they need to do is to be different enough to start the conversation to be the next step.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating topic. And like you say, it's just most business owners, certainly small business owners I've come across over the years, are sort of somewhat internal looking. So just having someone like yourself put a different spin on things and looking at it from the customer's perspective, more importantly, right?
Yeah, and it's the way that you communicate what it is. And people get fixated, if they're in business, getting excited about what they do, not what they deliver. Nobody gives a damn what you do. They don't care whether it's going to take 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 years. They're going to pay for the outcome. And quite often they'll pay for less time. And how it gets there, they're not that excited about. You are, as a professional. Now, I talk about the 3 Ps in language. There's purpose, process, payoff. Now, the purpose is the why they're coming to you in the first place, why they want to talk to you, their pains, their needs, their goals. The process is how you do what you do. And the payoff is really what they're paying for, the benefits that they're going to get out of working with you. But most professionals, I had one this morning from Chicago I was working with, and all that she wanted to do was talk about how she did what she did. And it's just as, people glazing over, as boring as. Let's get to the part where, okay, quickly tell me how you do it. But most importantly, what do I get? What do I walk away with that I'm actually going to be paying for? And it's the ability, and what we talk about in ours is the agreed implementable value, not the box value. Most people will say, well, you're going to get X hours of coaching, you're going to get X hours of this, you got 10 videos to watch. That's the box. What does all that mean to me? What am I going to walk away with? How is my life and or business going to be changed if and when I do that. And when you're actually selling on the agreed implementable value, which is significantly greater than what the box value is, then you're going to have just a very pleasant discussion to say, if we work together and we did this, what would it mean to you? And then quantify some of those results. Wow, you've got to be excited about that. And by the way, my fees are only this. If I'm going to deliver you $20,000 per month in this, because this is what we together have calculated, which is a collaboration, from what you've said, we're going to deliver this. Great. Yeah. Well, guess what? The fees to do that are much less. And that's a much better way of doing it, because a lot of people that hate selling, because people that haven't bought from you yet are coming in with their hands in their pocket, their credit card hidden, and you've got to try and work them up from zero to your price. And that's where people think it's pushy. I'm pushing them up to the price. And then they'll think, well, I'm going to put more into the box. I'm going to give, but wait, you get more, but wait, you get more. So you're getting them up to the box value. But when you start at the top and you work and you agree on some value, that collaborative, this is what you are going to get when we work together, coming down from that is a much more pleasant conversation. I've had so many people just say, wow, that feels so much better.
Want to become the best manager you can be? Check out our Kick-Ass Manager course at growasmallbusiness.com. Do the course, then add your fellow managers for no extra cost. Join the 30%. 70% of people quit their job because of their manager.
Yeah, it's a very good way to describe it, actually. And I can imagine, definitely that takes away that difficultness of most sort of approach with sales. It's sort of interesting too. I've just been reading a book called The Story Brand by Dennis Miller. Are you familiar with that? No doubt.
I'm familiar with the concept. Yeah, I haven't read his book though.
Yeah, so it's probably not dissimilar to what you're talking about. It's all about how you communicate the solutions to your customers' problems at the end of the day, in simple terms. So, whereas, as you say, a lot of business owners talk technical and talk about themselves. So that doesn't sell much, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a fairly simple formula. We probably weren't going to get into it today, but we'll do it right now. It's fairly advanced, that I've built on some neuroscience that I've been working with some great people in America. It's how to structure the order about information, insights, questions, etc. And it's very simple to follow. It's DNQC. D is for data or delivery of information. I'm just going to give you some information. Now, what happens is most people in a sales call or presentation, they'll just keep dumping heaps of information either about themselves or about the product and what it does and why it's good and why we're better. And by the time you get about 5 minutes in, you're starting to forget the first minute anyway. So, and you remember a little bit. Whereas with this formula, you give some information and then turn it into a narrative, which is a story. Now, that story is probably about somebody else who's gone through with the same problem and got some great results, and you can quantify the results that they've got. So that's DN, tell the story. We remember stories. Then the Q is quantify. And very simply is, I've given you some information. I've told you a quick story about somebody. Could you see that working for you, Michael? Yes. Or what if we did this and this? From what we've seen here, what difference would that make to your business? And we could quantify it. Just basically, yep, that would work. And this is how much different. Let's just pick a number, 10K a month. That's how much difference. And then the C is confirm. Is that a priority of yours right now, that we fix that problem and we put that $10,000 a month into your bank account? So whenever and we do this with our blueprint, you go around and stop on spots. You have the conversation, you do a couple of those little flows, and then at the end of the conversation, it's, Michael, from what you've said, if we did this, this, and this, let's just say there's 3 spots that we agreed and calculated on, and it was a $30,000 change. From what you've said, if we put this system into your business, That's going to be an extra 30,000 over the next month or so. That's 90,000 over the next 3 months. Quick question, mate. Should we get started on this sooner rather than later? Or are you doing that well that you can do without 90K? And that's the simple process.
Yeah.
It's a conversational flow and a collaboration. And when the golden rule, technically speaking, when they're involved, they invest.
Yeah. No, I love it. And talking about stories, maybe just, I mean, you've touched on a few there, but maybe just share one specific one with us, sort of to put what you've been talking about in sort of context.
Well, I'll tell you one that just happened a week, 2 weeks now. He was recommended from a podcast that we speak. It was the host of a podcast told this guy, you better talk to Steve. That was even before the podcast came out. So we had a chat. He's now a client. And just in the chat about what I do, what we're going to do together, he took the concept of the blueprint and how to use it. He had a call 2 days later. I got an email 3 days after a casual chat, wasn't even a coaching call. He said, Steve, this blueprint system is, I'll just say, bloody awesome. Got on a call, used what I remembered from our chat and closed a $360,000 deal.
Wow.
Can't wait to get started. So I thought, well, yeah, it's not a bad start, but
very good start.
Yeah, it's a good start. So it's and it's right back to people that are fairly new at life coaching. I had one great one several years ago. She'd never been able to sell her life coaching. She was giving it away. She attended actually a live face-to-face event where, we drew out the blueprints and she learned how to sell. That afternoon, I was actually flying from Brisbane back to Sydney. And by the time I got off the plane, she left me 2 messages. Steve, I've just sold on my hand-drawn blueprint 2 full-price coaching programs. And that to me meant as much as the guy, selling $360,000 is like giving people a framework to be able to sell themselves without feeling pushy or sleazy.
Yeah, and I guess that from that perspective must be very satisfying in, making such a contribution to people's lives, essentially. So I could appreciate how that would feel for you. So it's awesome. So just to wrap up, and I appreciate all the stuff you've spoken about this afternoon. I think it's a great value. What would be at least one thing you'd recommend a small business owner does on Monday based on your knowledge and expertise coming out of this?
I'm going to wrap it up in 2 parts, but the one thing is break out of the brown box, do what you can to find your uniqueness. And a lot of people will think that they've got to be the best in the world. And the saying is that I have for my people, you don't have to be the best in the world. You just have to be the best in their world. So how can you position, package? What are the unique things that you do that you could communicate to your people as your unique authority positioning? Because people get mixed up with experts and authorities. An expert, they say you got to do your 10,000 hours to become an expert. Okay, fair enough. An expert knows something, and authority is known for something. So you don't have to do your 10,000 hours. You just have to be known for delivering valued outcomes. And if all they did was they say, what is it that my people value? What is it that I do that's different? How can I communicate that in a way and then create my own what is it that I could be the creator of, deliverer of, to stand out in my market? And that in itself will help them go a long way to really stand out in their marketplace.
Yeah, no, I love that, and it seems pretty simple. And I think to help, no doubt, and you've given our listeners the opportunity to download your free back pocket guide on how to sell yourself without selling your soul. So no doubt that'll help. We'll put that in the show notes. So I appreciate that. And again, thanks for your time. It was really insightful. And I'm sure our listeners will get a lot out of it. So thanks again, Steve.
Mate, I recommend they go and grab that back pocket guide because it virtually is a workshop in a book. There's some videos in there. It's a lot of what we were talking about today. And it's my pleasure to have a chat with you, buddy, and certainly give some value to your people. And I really do hope they implement it.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
All right, cheers.
And for our audience, we would greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.